This video tutorial covers the analysis tab. So if we just jump straight to the analysis tab, for this presentation we're going to be using the data from our own study with Czekalani coffee. Currently we're looking at the value proposition model for farmers. So as you can see here, we have all the receipts here. We have coffee sales, livestock, other agricultural produce, and so on. And then we have the various payments here that the farmers are engaged with. Just to show you here the data from the interviews under every single row for receipts and payments. There are 10 different rows, but they're just hidden underneath the other ones. This is just to show that the data here is averages from the 10 interviews, and the 10 interviews are here. So the data collected in the analysis sheet is from those 10 different tabs. So let me just go ahead and hide these. So if we just go through this column by column, if we focus on the coffee sales row, the cash risk value is around 1.4%. The cost of time is around 7,000. The transport cost one way is around 8,600. The travel time in minutes one way is around 56 minutes. The average value per transaction is around 250,000. So this is data from each of the months. So we can also just go ahead and hide that so it won't get in our way. The next row is the percentage of the total. So coffee sales are 50% of the total sales over the course of the year. They get paid in cash around this much, and they get paid in mobile money around a tenth of that. The average number of transactions is around 20. So the total cost of cash risk on average is around 3,500. The total cost of transport is around 70,000. Total cost of time lost is around 7,000. So now we get to the analysis part of the whole thing. So here in this column you can see the total cost of cash, and this is if we include the cost of risk, the cost of time, and the cost of transportation. So for coffee sales that would be close to 28,000 per transaction. Now the colors in these columns are coded based on the highest and lowest value within each column. So the lowest number here will be green and the highest number will be red. So it's only within this column. Now if we only include the cost of risk, the cost of coffee per coffee sale would be close to 3,500. Now moving on to the DFS categories, these are relevant in order for us to be able to calculate the cost of DFS payments. So in this case, coffee sales are merchant payment, because Czekalani Coffee pays the coffee farmers and incurs costs that are relevant to the merchant payment tariffs. The cost of DFS, so if a farmer would be paid with mobile money without the need to cash out the mobile money. So assuming that the farmer does not need to cash out what he receives from Czekalani Coffee, the cost for the farmer would be essentially zero. This is because Czekalani bears the cost of the transfer, and it doesn't cost anything to receive mobile money. So if we compare this cost to either of these columns, the value proposition is obviously positive for the farmer. Now if we compare the cost of DFS with cash out, then that's 3,580 compared to 3,460. So that's a negative value proposition. Now the reason why we have to compare this column and this column for most transactions for farmers is because they usually incur only the cost of risk rather than also the cost of time and transport when they move to mobile money. So let's say that if a farmer accepts mobile money for their coffee, that does not mean that he rids himself of the cost of time and transport, because the farmer still needs to transport the coffee down to the Chakalani coffee collection stations in order to supervise weighing and grading of the coffee. So if he's paid with mobile money, he still needs to do that. So the only relevant cost when moving to mobile money is the cost of risk, not the cost of time or transport. And that is why we have to compare these two columns. Now, this is true for actually most receipts and payments. If we look, for example, at livestock, now if a farmer wants to buy a cow from another farmer, he's still going to have to go and pick up that cow or meet that farmer in some way where the cow is probably present. So if he pays that farmer for the cow with mobile money, he's still going to incur the cost of time and transport, irrelevant of whether or not he pays with mobile money. So if we just look at the rows here, they're negative for basically the biggest incomes that the farmer has. So the largest ones are coffee sales and other agricultural produce. So the value propositions are negative, quite negative for other agricultural produce, and sort of neutral for coffee. Now we have to realize that this model does not include the cost of looking for an agent. So if a farmer wants to cash out mobile money, he's not only paying the cash out fee, he also has to find an agent, and in rural areas agents don't always have float or cash on hand, so he may have to look for an agent for a little while before he's able to cash out. So that would be an extra cost for him. So that means that this is probably even more negative than what the model is able to show. So for this reason, the fact that there are other variables that the model does not factor in, we added this column here, which is integrate on DFS, yes or no. So do we want to try to move farmers from cash to mobile money in this case, yes or no? So the reason why we put yes here is that when we looked at our trader value proposition models and the model for Chakalani coffee, both of them have very positive value propositions. So that means they may be able to bear a part of the cost of the farmer cash out. Which means that they should be able to integrate it if they're able to pay for some of their cash out fees. So the last relevant column here is this one, and this is basically us supporting our decision to put whether or not we put a yes or a no in the box here. So something important to realize is that you sort of have to look at the different actors in the different value chains that you're looking at as a whole. So if traders are paying farmers for their coffee, and Chakalani is paying traders for the coffee that they collect from farmers, it's not sufficient just to look at whether or not a farmer has a negative or positive value proposition. You have to sort of combine them and see if the trader would be able to help the farmer pay for their withdrawal fees, for example, because the trader is faced with extreme risk because they have to travel long distances with a lot of cash. So what we looked at as well is so if you look at the coffee revenue that farmers have, that's around half of the revenue. What sort of use cases do they have for mobile money? So that's where the payments come in. If they have enough use cases, that means that they don't have to cash out. So that means we don't have to look at this row here anymore. We can sort of move to this one, and the cost is 0 of receiving mobile money, and then the costs are lower here. So if we can look at this column here with no cash out, if farmers are paying for seeds and seedlings, for example, with mobile money, they have a positive value proposition for doing that if they don't have to cash out. But the reality in the field right now is that if they want to buy seeds and seedlings with mobile money, they're going to have to pay for the withdrawal fees of the merchant who accepts that mobile money payment. So in effect, they will actually be here with a negative value proposition. Now the reason why we still decided to put a yes for DFS integration for inputs, basically seeds, seedlings, herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizer, is that if Chakalani sets up an input shop that accepts mobile money, these will quickly be moved to the left column. Now this is a very small proportion of the total amount that they spend every year, so it's not enough to move the farmers to the left here. So this is just an example to show you that you can move farmers from the right column to the left column, and from the left column to the right column, depending on what you do with their payments. Now, the last thing to look at is the dashboards, and this one is pretty straightforward. It's pretty much just some descriptive statistics shown based on the data that you have collected.